brethren, we continue our study of the book of Ezekiel, chapters 43 to 45. The glory of Yahweh fills the temple, reading from 43 verse 1.
Chapter 43. Afterward, he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh toward the east, and behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. And his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. And it was according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision that I saw by the river Kibar, and I fell upon my face. And the glory of the Lord came into the house by the way of the gate whose prospect is toward the east. So the Spirit took me up, and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house. And the man stood by me, and he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever, and my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they, nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places, in their setting of their threshold by my thresholds, and their post by my posts, and the wall between me and them. They have even defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed. Wherefore I have consumed them in mine anger. Now let them put away their whoredom, and the carcasses of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in the midst of them forever. Thou son of man.
Verse 13.
And these are the measures of the altar after the cubits.
God then goes on to give the measurements of the house to be built. I'm going to jump to chapter 44, the gate for the princes, reading from verse 1.
Chapter 44. Then he brought me back the way of the gate of the outward sanctuary, which looketh toward the east, and it was shut. Then said the Lord unto me, This gate shall be shut, it shall not be opened, and no man shall enter in by it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, hath entered in by it, therefore it shall be shut. It is for the prince, he shall sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and shall go out by the way of the same.
God then set some laws about the house of God, continuing from verse 6.
Say to the rebellious, even to the house of Israel, Thus saith the Lord God, O ye house of Israel, let it suffice you of all your abominations, in that ye have brought into my sanctuary strangers, uncircumcised in heart, and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary, to pollute it, even my house, when ye offer my bread, the fat and the blood, and they have broken my covenant because of all your abominations.
So one of the rules is no uncircumcised in flesh nor heart is to enter God's house. Now I cannot recall if there is a law in Deuteronomy of those, so that the uncircumcised cannot enter the sanctuary. I know they cannot have the Passover. I assume the sanctuary is different from the general house of God, where all could congregate. Only priests were to enter the sanctuary, and only Levites could be priests. So a stranger, i.e. Gentile, natural Gentile that is, could not be a priest and enter the sanctuary. In Daniel chapter 8, we read of a person represented by a little horn, who magnified himself in God's sanctuary. Verse 11 reads, Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. We should go on to that when we come to the book of Daniel a bit more. But such people magnify themselves by doing things forbidden to be done as entering the sanctuary. Lamentations chapters 1 verse 8 has another another verse about that. It reads, Jerusalem hath grievously sinned, therefore she is removed. All that honoured her despise her, because they have seen her nakedness. Yea, she sighed and turned backwards. Her filthiness is in her skirts. She remembered not her last end, therefore she came down wonderfully. She had no comforter. O Yahweh, behold my afflictions, for the enemy hath magnified himself. The adversary hath spread out his hand upon all the pleasant things, for she hath seen that the heathen entered into her sanctuary, whom thou commanded that they should not enter into thy congregation. Another verse on the matter is Daniel chapters 11 verse 36. And the king shall do according to his will. This is not a good king, it's a bad king. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods. So this is a pagan king who conquered Jerusalem. So continuing from Ezekiel 44 verse 8.
Ye have not kept the charge of mine holy things, but ye have set keepers of my charge in my sanctuary for yourselves. Thus saith the Lord God, no stranger uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary, of any stranger that is among the children of Israel.
God then goes on to talk about some of the abominations that the Levite priests did. We're going to continue from verse 15, rules for the Levite priest.
But the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, that kept the charge of my sanctuary when the children of Israel went astray from me, they shall come near to me to minister unto me, and they shall stand before me to offer unto me the fat and the blood, saith the Lord God. They shall enter into my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table, to minister unto me, and they shall keep my charge. And it shall come to pass that when they enter in at the gates of the inner court, they shall be clothed with linen garments, and no wool shall come upon them, whilst they minister in the gates of the inner court and within. They shall have linen bonnets upon their heads, and shall have linen breeches upon their loins. They shall not gird themselves with anything that causeth sweat. And when they go forth into the utter court, even into the utter court to the people, they shall put off their garments wherein they ministered, and lay them in the holy chambers, and they shall put on other garments, and they shall not sanctify the people with their garments, neither shall they shave their heads, nor suffer their locks to grow long. They shall only poll their heads. Neither shall any priest drink wine when they enter into the inner court, neither shall they take for their wives a widow, nor her that is put away, but they shall take maidens of the seed of the house of Israel, or a widow that had a priest before. And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean.
A major violation today that the priests, preachers, teachers are not teaching the people the difference between clean and unclean. Everything is now become common. Days are the same. Once they're called a rest day, or you can do what you want on them and dress as you want as you come to church. Okay, let's continue. Chapters 45, verse 1. The Holy District.
Chapter 45. Moreover, when ye shall divide by lot the land for inheritance, ye shall offer an oblation unto the Lord, an holy portion of the land. The length shall be the length of 25,000 reeds, and the breadth shall be 10,000. This shall be holy in all the borders thereof round about. Of this there shall be for the sanctuary 500 in length, with 500 in breadth, square round about, and 50 cubits round about for the suburbs thereof.
Continuing from verse 7.
And a portion shall be for the prince on the one side, and on the other side of the oblation of the holy portion, and of the possession of the city, before the oblation of the holy portion, and before the possession of the city, from the west side westward, and from the east side eastward. And the length shall be over against one of the portions, from the west border unto the east border. In the land shall be his possession in Israel, and my princes shall no more oppress my people. And the rest of the land shall they give to the house of Israel according to their tribes.
So God continues giving instructions about the temple and so forth. We'll continue from verse 16.
All the people of the land shall give this oblation for the prince in Israel, and it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings, and meat offerings, and drink offerings, in the feasts, and in the new moons, and in the Sabbaths, solemnities of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering, and the meat offering, and the burnt offering, and the peace offerings, to make reconciliation for the house of Israel.
So notice the different types of offerings, as also mentioned in Leviticus chapters 1 to 5, I believe. The thing to note, it is the prince, out of all the other princes, as the high priest, was the one out of all the other priests that is now doing the duties of offering sacrifices in verse 17, which previously the Levites did. For example, in Leviticus chapter 16, deals with the Day of Atonement. Continuing from verse 21.
In the first month, in the 14th day of the month, ye shall have the Passover, a feast of 7 days. Unleavened bread shall be eaten. And upon that day shall the prince prepare for himself, and for all the people of the land, a bullock for a sin offering. And 7 days of the feast he shall prepare a burnt offering to the Lord, 7 bullocks and 7 rams without blemish, daily the 7 days. And a kid of the goats daily for a sin offering. And he shall prepare a meat offering of an ephah for a bullock, and an ephah for a ram, and an hin of oil for an ephah. In the 7th month, in the 15th day of the month, shall he do the like in the feast of the 7 days, according to the sin offering, according to the burnt offering, and according to the meat offering, and according to the oil.
So here we have in this temple, God's given specific instructions that the feast days, so the annual holy days of God, as in of which one of them is Leviticus 16, are still kept. Now just here, people think the word Sabbath is only used for the weekly one, the 7th day one. But actually all God's holy days are called Sabbaths. Shalom until tomorrow's studies, God willing.